COVID deaths in the UK now exceed those from Italy. And we're going to be presenting a little bit more evidence today that COVID-19 is not natural.
At least 44 states will be partially reopened by Sunday.
Well, the director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is warning that a second wave of the coronavirus in America could be more deadly than the current outbreak.
Herd immunity and the second wave.
The second wave appears worse than the first. To understand how deadly a second wave can be, we have to go back in time 100 years. It's March 1918, and a strange new disease is killing people in a US Army base in Kansas. Soon, the virus spreads throughout Europe and the world as World War I rages on. However, for most people, symptoms of a high fever and malaise last about 3 days, and the virus only has a mortality rate similar to that of the seasonal flu. Over the summer, reported cases of the Spanish flu dropped, and people hoped it had run its course. However, in late August 1918, a new, mutated strain of the virus started to spread. This could kill you within 1 day of getting symptoms. The mortality rate of the virus rocketed. In the month of October in the US alone, 195,000 people died from the disease.
A boat is the only way to get on Justin Sebo's farm near Arcoma, Oklahoma. Every inch of his 10,000 acres is under 2 feet of Arkansas River water. His wheat crop, which was only 2 weeks away from harvesting, is gone.
Hey everybody, this is Shad Sullivan coming to you from the headwaters of Bitter Creek, Archer County, North Texas. We have to talk. State officials will be assisting to help identify potential alternative markets if a producer is unable to move animals, and if necessary, advise and assist on depopulation and disposal methods. Ladies and gentlemen, we are plowing under vegetable crops from coast to coast. We are euthanizing millions of chickens. We are aborting sows and burying feeder pigs. We are dumping milk by the hundreds of thousands of gallons, and now they are preparing us to depopulate the fat cattle ready to harvest because of a bottleneck created by the effects of COVID. This thing hasn't been created by COVID, but the effects of COVID and the logistics therein. We are in trouble. Our food supply is in trouble.
Evening, folks. Breakaway Homesteader. Thank you for bearing with me, and that we're starting a little late tonight, but a few minutes late, trying to get my stuff together, my setup. This is the first time using my DSLR camera, and so we can have the quality picture we need. So you can see the new board here, but we are working through things. I hope you guys really took heed to the intro. I know it's kind of startling, but I also think it's necessary to get your attention on what is actually going on in our country right now. I'm putting up in the corner a little homework assignment. It's Latin. Look up that term and decide on what that means for you and what's going on in our society today, between what's going on between the virus, what's going on between politics, and what kind of smoke and mirrors are being projected to you to draw your attention elsewhere on the real issues of the country. So you're paying attention to them and focusing on that, but not focusing on yourself. So one of one of the things I'm going to do with this series, this is not a drill series, is every week when that intro is introduced to the show for that day, there will be a 2-day period between that. I will re-upload new material on what's going on so it stays current with the times, so you could see what's going on during that time. Just little snippets of what's going on. There was a show in the I'm sorry, there was a snippet inside the intro from 2019, and what it was covering was the 2019 Midwest flooding, where the majority of our crops were devastated, setting into motion a chain reaction of a food shortage before the virus even hit us. So for 2019, we had the Midwest flooding, major crop disruption, crop yield disruption, and then that last video on the intro was a rancher in Texas who is obviously getting information from the government about culling their live animals. Chickens are built to do one thing, that's to be fed and killed. And if they go past their date that they're supposed to be killed, they're too large, they're too chemically heavy to sustain themselves, and they'll literally suffocate to death if they don't call them off, and that means kill before that expiration date. Same thing with pigs, same thing with our beef. And so it's sad to think that our nation is starving because there's too much of something that we can all eat, but the issue is distribution and butchers. Now, 100 years ago, everybody was a butcher. It really didn't matter if everybody had their own stock in their backyard. And so when they were hungry, they didn't need refrigeration. They had a live animal in the back. They would go back, kill it, and then and process it in a manner that their generation, their fathers, their grandparents taught them, and generational after that. So this video is a part of a 3-part series. The first one is going to be the life cycle of a chicken. I personally believe the chicken is the most versatile animal to have in a situation like this. So 6 months down the road, when food shortages start happening, egg shortages, limits are limited to a half a dozen eggs, stuff like that, because it will happen. Or chicken is only reduced, you can get a half a chicken. You'll be able to, like your ancestors, go back to the backyard, get what you need to get, and either produce eggs or meat for your family. And protein is protein, and protein is key to successful health in a crisis. The first of this series is going to be the life cycle of a chicken. We have chickens on our property here, and we do we love our chickens. Chickens are like a second pet. They're like outdoor cats, or out. They're just great animals to have as pets, and not just as a pet, but a multi-purpose pet. You don't want to get attached to your chicken, your stock, because they have a purpose in life, and their purpose is to feed you and your family, to provide sustenance, and that's what they do. And so the first one is going to be the life cycle. The second video is going to talk about meat birds and the cycle of meat birds. If you want to produce your own meat in succession, let's say you want chicken once a week, so that's 52 birds that are going to be ready for culling in 10 weeks. We're going to talk about the cycle of raising meat birds. The third video is going to be about egg laying hens, and again, that cycle that they have to get the best quality eggs, to get the most eggs, and to focus on the breed types of eggs where you can get the best eggs you will ever have. If you have ever had a homestead egg from a farm, you'll know the difference between that and store-bought eggs. A store-bought egg will be light and fluffy, and it'll be tasteless. A farm egg won't be. It'll be a lot heavier because it has a lot more protein in it. It's got omegas in it. A bird that's let out to free range will have uh, more variety of bugs along with the grain that you feed it. Whereas birds in other places, commercial places, only have access to commercial feed that is pumped with chemicals to keep them alive as long as they can, and so on and so forth. So today is going to be about chicken and the life cycle of the chicken. I've got my show notes here. We decided to start the show last night. I haven't had a chance to really go through most of this, but I will be going through it with you step by step. I've read through my notes, and we are pretty much ready with what we want to accomplish. Now, the reason why you want chickens is because it's the easiest animal to care for. As long as you're feeding and watering, they will take care of themselves. And after a while, they'll start producing for you. And so we're going to answer several questions about the life cycle. We're going to talk about the 4 key stages of the chicken, and that's the life cycle of the chicken. So let's talk about the first stage. The first stage is egg development and hatching. Hatching. There's an egg right there. There's 2 ways for egg development and hatching. That's to have the bird itself. Lovely, right? And then incubation. This is my little incubator. There's 2 ways for egg development and hatching. The old-fashioned way, that's with a bird, and then the more modern way is with an incubator. Both of these are both very effective. Both of these are good ways to do this yourself and not have to go to a hatchery to do it. But we're going to start out with Mama Hen there. And so, let's talk about Mama Hen. Mama Hen will lay an egg once every 25 to 27 hours. You get 1 egg. And that's a healthy chicken. We'll talk about older chickens here towards the end of the life cycle of the chicken. But a healthy hen will lay 25 to 27 hours, 1 egg every 25 to 27 hours. And that's its cycle. And its cycle is basically its menstruation cycle. I don't know how to say it. But it's the chicken ejecting its ovary eggs one at a time. And they're all lined up. They develop from a little tiny ovary into an ova or egg and comes out, obviously. Now, the egg will remain unfertilized unless it's been fertilized by a rooster. He can keep the rooster. The hen can keep the rooster's sperm viable in a pouch in its vajayjay for up to 3 weeks. Alternatively, and this is funny because we have white chickens and we have Plymouth Rock chickens. And the white chickens are older and we have a Plymouth Rock rooster. And every time we incubate, the white eggs are always unfertilized, not fertilized at all. And I didn't realize it until I did this study here that hens choose who the father of their baby chicks are, and this will help prevent inbreeding between brothers and sisters if they know or have that natural instinct that their brother is mating them, that they can eject that rooster's sperm from that pouch. And if they find a nice stud of a rooster, then they can keep that for up to 3 weeks in that pouch to fertilize their eggs as they continuously get hatched. And so it stays in the pouch. The eggs come down, and as they come out, are fertilized by that rooster's sperm. And so, yeah, the hen gets the last squat. So let's assume that our hen took the stud rooster's sperm, and the egg is fertilized. Once the egg is dropped and the chicken has enough eggs, it feels satisfied that it has enough eggs to sit on. It's usually about 12 to 20 eggs. She'll collect them in a clutch, and then she'll sit down on them and start to brood over them. So when a chicken becomes broody, you don't want to mess with this chicken. She will sit diligently on those eggs for 21 days. During this time, she will keep them warm, turn them regularly, and expel any eggs that are not progressing. And so this is the easiest way to produce eggs or produce chicks on the farm, is to and it's a natural way, is to let the mother go broody. And during this time, she'll not be laying any eggs. Her main focus is to hatch eggs, right? And so she'll do that, and she'll do that for the next 21 days. And these are mean, mean birds because they don't want you to touch their eggs. They're working as hard as they can to produce something for you and for themselves. They want to further their own kind, and it's the natural cycle of things, right? So a short time before hatching, chick will absorb the nutrients from the egg, that's the rest of the yolk, into the body to support itself. And so when chicks are hatched, they absorb that yolk and the nutrients and the last of the fluids that are inside that egg. And so this is the reason why hatcheries can immediately ship those birds, those chicks, to a location via mail, and those chicks not have to have water or food because they are still absorbing that nutrient that they consumed before they hatched, right? A short time before hatching, the chick will absorb the egg. We did that. We might not be able to see what's going on inside the egg, but there is certain milestones that are important and interesting to know about. We're not going to go over the development of the egg, but we will be talking about the chick specifically. Hey, Megan? Megan, can I get a chick, please? So stand by. My wife is going to get us a chick so we can take a look at what the first phase is. Well, in the meantime, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's coping with this crisis in their own way and that everybody is safe. You coming? Oh, I hear him. Yeah. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, say hello to Mr. Chick. This is a chick that was born literally 3 hours ago. Not about 3 hours ago. Let's see if we can, there we go. See if we can get our focus on there. Nope, don't worry about it, honey. There we are. So let's take a look at this guy. He's still coming out of that furry face. They're born completely wet. And this one looks like it's going to be a hen because they'll have more of a comb on top of their head if they're going to be a rooster. This is a bar rock. There we go. A bar rock or Plymouth Rock heritage hen, and this hen this hen will be is native to the United States. And so this one is the very first stage of our life cycle of the chicken. So I'm going to give that back to Megan. Thank you.
Come here, baby.
You got her? Yeah. Okay. She's going to go back into the brooder. And that's the second part we're going to talk about. Let's get focused here real quick. As we talked about the chicken, next we're going to talk about the brooder. Now, when you brood, or not the brooder, but the incubator. Now, incubation is a choice. You could do it this way or that way. The disadvantage of having that is if you're going for eggs, that broody chicken will not lay eggs for that 21-day period. And if she gets broody and she doesn't get to sit on eggs, she will continue not to lay eggs until she realizes her eggs are not coming back. So what we do is we ensure that we pick up our eggs at least every 3 days. We collect eggs at least every 3 days. We have 10 chickens currently laying right now. That's way more for 3 people. I give eggs away all the time. But it's kind of required that you pick up your eggs at least every 3 days, every 72 hours, or not 72 hours, but every 3 days. The reason why is, one, if a chicken decides to go broody, that chicken's not going to lay until she realizes she can't hatch chickens. And two, it gives them the opportunity to consume those eggs, and they will literally, once they lay them, the other chickens will go after that egg for nutrition, and you don't want chickens going after their own eggs. So what we do here is we put them in an incubator. Now, an incubator needs to be set at 99 to 102 degrees. We put ours at 99.5 degrees, and it has to be 65 to 80% humidity inside the incubator. Now, our incubator is pretty much automatic. We put water in the bottom. It's got an egg turner. You put the eggs inside the egg turner. It holds 40 eggs at a time, and it automatically rotates those eggs because they have to be rotated. And once they're rotated, after 18 days, you take them off the rotator and set them down because they're ready to be hatched. At the 11-day mark, you're going to candle those eggs and then decide which ones are viable and which ones aren't. Those that aren't viable will be completely translucent. You'll be able to tell which one does and which one doesn't have a viable embryo inside them. And of the 40 we did, 35 of them had viable embryos. Of those, 17 hatched today. Over the past 3 days, 17 have hatched. And so your ratios all depend on what's going on inside your incubator, the humidity level, and that. So once we're at that 3-day point before the 21-day ending period, before they're going to be born, you want to lower that humidity to about 60%. And that lower humidity helps them realize that it's time to come out of their shell. So that brings us up to our next step. Number 2, chick. So now you have several precious little fluff balls. What next? If mama is raising them, you need to do very little. She will attend to their needs and cares. The first days of their lives will be spent underneath mama's wings, where they're kept warm and safe. Again, up to 72 hours after they're born, they'll stay under the mama. They don't need any water. They don't need any nutrients because they absorbed the last of that egg before they were hatched. You can provide her with a separate, you want to provide her with separate quarters, move the mama and her chicks to a secluded place and to a large cage where she won't be bugged by the other chickens because they can go after the chickens. The chickens can be carnivorous. They can eat their own kind as well if they feel that need. If they're feeling they need to establish their pecking order, even though these are baby chicks, they're going to trample or peck to death all these little baby chicks. So to separate them is a better idea. So if you're incubating, you will need to provide them warmth, food, water, safety. Special chick starter feed is needed for high protein content to ensure healthy development. They will also need clean, fresh water. And as chicks are messy, you'll have to change that water constantly, 2 or 3 times a day. We do ours twice, but we also put more waterers in with our chicks. So temperature wise, warmth is very essential for them to thrive. So we put a heat lamp inside their little enclosure, or we call it the brooder. For the first week, the brooder temperature of your heat lamp should be 95 degrees. And these are specs that follow this. What I do is I will place, so here's the top side of the brooder. It's pretty much round. It looks like a big stop sign actually. I'll place the heat lamp in the middle, facing down. So here's the heat lamp. It's facing down. That's heat on the floor. And so not too close to where it'll ignite something, because a heat lamp will cause a fire if you put it on anything that will burn. But I'll put it a good, I want to say 8 to 10 inches above the floor. And when I put them in the brooder, they'll be right here, and they'll be right underneath the light. Because in the very beginning, they'll need that heat. They'll need that 95-degree heat. But as they get older, they'll work their way out from underneath that lamp. And by the time they're ready to come out of the brooder, they're not even underneath this. And then you can turn it off for a few days and go ahead and transfer them out. As your chicks get bigger, so it says here the temperature should be reduced by 5 degrees each week until you reach an ambient temperature. That's just the science of it. Like I said, what we do is we let nature take over, and we let the chicks figure it out themselves, because that's what they're supposed to do. As your chicks get bigger, they will start to sprout their first real feathers. This usually happens during the second week. Also, in the second week, you can add some chick grit to the brooder and perhaps a small perch for them to practice with. Also, add a clump of short grass or dandelion weeds with dirt attached, so they can get in the benefits and get into the practice of eating greens, because they eat grass as well. Weeks 3 and 4 sees them acquiring more feathers and growing rapidly. By week 5, the temperature of the brooder should be matching the air temperature around it. And so our brooder is inside a shed. By week 5, they're actually jumping up on the edge of the brooder and trying to jump out. We have to shut it at this point, because we go in to feed them. There'll be several of them outside of the brooder. We have to put them back in. This is the point where we know or feel that they're ready to go out in the real world. Now this says by week 8, they should be able to spend more time outside, and you can start expanding their taste: mealworms, grains, greens, so on and so forth. Our chicks are a month old, and they're already outside in their own pen. We have 10 chicks that were born a little over a month ago, I would say, and they're already out in their own pen, no heat lamp. If it gets cold, they huddle together and create their own warmth, just like honeybees. And so congratulations, you're now, so this will go on. You'll continue to feed them chick feed until about month 2, and then at that point they'll go to the regular feed, and then they will start developing more mature bodies. And so that is phase 2, the chick phase. And just as before, with egg development and hatching, we do have a chick that we're going to share with you guys. This little girl is exactly 1 month. Let me focus that camera there. So this little girl is 1 month. You can see she's got almost all her feathers. She does have some fuzzy feathers there, which are from when she was born, but the majority of her big girl feathers have pretty much come in. It's okay. You're You're all right. Hey, calm down. It's all right. So let's take a look at our feathers. Those are adult feathers right there. So before they get to go roam free, we will cut these feathers so they can't fly off into trees, because they will perch into trees. This is again a Plymouth Rock or Bar Rock chicken. This is our main breed. We choose this breed simply because it's a dual purpose bird. They lay fantastic eggs, really nutritious eggs, and they also become very large birds, large enough to cook if we want to, if we need to. And so that is your chick phase, phase 2. And for the next one, you just bring in the box.
Yeah, I was going to.
And so that is your chick phase. Now we're starting to raise adolescents. Now we're starting to raise chickens that are goofballs, that are teenagers, right? So let me wipe this off here. We're moving on to phase 3. And phase 3 is the pullet phase, or adolescent. It says, congratulations, you now have teenagers. Adolescent chickens are not the prettiest. They are skinny. All the legs look somewhat out of proportion, and when they're compared to adult chickens. In fact, they might look a lot more like their ancient relatives, which are dinosaurs. Not to worry, they will soon be sleek and pretty like the adults. Meanwhile, you have to be the referee between the adults and the juveniles. Um, you don't want to put a juvenile in with the adults until they're 2/3 the size of the normal chickens, of the chickens that are inside the pen. If you do that beforehand, the other chickens can peck them to death just like they would if they were chicks, because they are the brawn of the group. They are uh, the higher ups, so to speak. The juveniles can be integrated with adults when they reach roughly 2/3 the size of the adults. As you doubtless know, the pecking order can be brutal, so keep your eyes open for extreme bullying. This is why I choose to have only one rooster with my chickens. There's one Mac Daddy, and if it's a good rooster, and you'll know a good rooster, uh, you'll keep that. You'll want to keep that one rooster. Our rooster is nice to his ladies. He makes sure that the ladies eat before he does, and he protects them from anything. He warns them if there's any predators nearby, and so we want to keep this one particular rooster because he's a good rooster. So from this point forward, any of those chicks that become roosters, once they start crowing, that's when we're going to call them off. That's when we're going to put them in the pot, because we don't want them fighting over the chickens, right? Over the hens. So generally the youngsters learn quickly to get out of the way, but occasionally an adult bird will decide to be an absolute demon to the new arrivals and do everything possible to be obnoxious. If possible, it is best to leave the juveniles in with the adults, so they only have to endure the pecking order once. You don't want to remove them if you don't have to. Ideally, if you live on a farm that you have run through chickens and you do cull to get the better birds, if it gets to the point where it's so brutal on one particular bird, you might just let it happen, because that's survival of the fittest. You'll have a stronger bird and stronger breed once that bird uh, has chicks of their own. So cockerels or baby roosters will be introduced to the flock before they can start to crow, especially if you already have a rooster. The boys need to learn their place in the flock, otherwise you will have persisting fighting between the old and new birds or roosters. Cockerels will be practicing their crowing every opportunity they get. Uh, Once they get settled in their place in their hierarchy, so have a pair of earplugs ready. That's another reason why we only have one rooster. Actually, we have two roosters, but one is a specialty breed that we have. So uh, our Next stage birds are currently 4.5 months old, around there.
About that, yeah.
They are 2/3 the size, and they're about ready to go in with the other birds. These won't go in because they're a special breed, but we do have a bird of this age. And it says here, adolescents will start laying eggs around 18 weeks. That's 4.5 months, but they will vary between breeds on times. Once she has laid her first egg, she is an adult, although some folks will call these first eggs pullet eggs because they're going to be so tiny. They'll be about the size of I don't know,
Almost a quail
a
egg.
quail egg. Yeah, and they'll lay quail eggs for a while until they reach maturity. And in about 6 months, they'll continuously lay full-size eggs. So our next exhibit, beautiful bird. She's so nice. That bird is a very nice bird. Okay. This right here, you're okay. A little camera shy? It's all right. This right here is an I am Samani. An I am Samani is it's a bird with a genetic defect. They're from Malaysia. Well, their breed is from Malaysia, and they have a genetic defect which causes them to be black through and through. Their meat is black, their beaks are black, everything is black about them. And so this one, if you can see here, it's not a full-size chicken. And you'll see a full-size chicken here in a minute. This one is roughly 2/3 the size, and is if we were introducing them to the rest of the flock, would be a great time to put them in because they're old enough to defend themselves and become part of the pecking order. Isn't she beautiful? I love these birds because they got this like green sheen to them. But you can see here, her wings are clipped, and those need actually to be reclipped. And this way they can't get far if they decide to fly away. But yeah, isn't that a pretty bird? This is Megan's favorite. Pecking at me. So we were trying to make our own bloodline, but gosh darn it, predators keep getting into these birds. And
We'll try again.
We'll try again, most definitely. We have currently 3 hens and 1 rooster, but the rooster is kin to these 3 hens. So we'll have to get another rooster to work with these gals. However, this clutch came from a natural brooding hen.
Mm-hmm.
Their mama,
she hatched them and raised them.
Hatched them herself. She became broody, very ornery.
Very, very ornery. Like we had to use a stick to get into the.
Oh yeah.
To get into the hutch because she would come at you like a
we didn't
Canadian
let her
goose.
Continue on with her chicks because this particular breed isn't good with chicks, and so we put them in the brooder, and it was hard to get them out because she was so broody and so mean. There you go.
Come on, love. Let's go back with your friends. You ready for the other one?
Just about. We're going to talk about adults next. That's number 4. The boys can be tiresome once the hormones kick in. They may challenge your head rooster at every opportunity they get. There are a few solutions to this. You can rehome them. You can move them to their own bachelor pad, or you can cull them or kill them. We put them in the pot as soon as they start crowing because we know who we want to have as our main dude. And when that main dude gets old enough, then we'll decide we'll remove that main dude and then let them have their own pecking order and choose from various roosters on who's going to be the next Mac Daddy. So as you know, hens molt every year. They replace old, worn-out feathers. The new hens. Are we in stage 4 yet? Yep, we're in the hen adult stage. The new hens will not molt until the following years. That's one of the aspects you want to think about when you have meat birds or egg producing birds. Their first year is going to be their best year after they start laying eggs. It takes them up to 2 years to start molting because they're new birds. And it's at that point where they start to molt that they start to deteriorate to a point where you decide whether to call them off or let them be legacy hens. Um, so the following spring, some of your chicks may become broody mamas themselves and give you another generation of adorable chicks. Most chickens lay well for the first year or two, but they start to slow production at about 72 week mark. That's about a year and a half, and many will still lay for you, but output will be noticeably less as chickens age. Like most creatures, they will start to show signs of old age. They will be less energetic, more lethargic, less willing to breed, and will move slower. Their legs and feet will become thicker and possibly arthritic. We have a couple of chickens that are 3 years old, and their legs or their toes are starting to get a little crooked on us. Facial features will take on an age or tired appearance, crusty appearance, kind of like a turkey before it gets cold. Will look older than it was when it was a fresh young bird. Egg production may cease altogether, or they may lay occasionally the yearly egg. Our birds are 3 years old, our oldest birds, and they still lay about every other day. So they're still producing. Again, that's that Bar Rock or Plymouth Rock breed. So, depending on the breed of chicken, a chicken can live between 3 and 20 years. Admittedly, none of our chickens will ever meet 20. These ones will be lucky to be 4 if they get there. Admittedly, 20-year veterans are few and far between. On average, the usual range is between 5 and 8 years for most hens. Hybrid layers tend to have the shortest span, as they are prone for development reproductive tumors at the age of 2 or so. Hens that are well taken care of or kept safe from predation can live much longer than 8 years, assuming they are not culled because they have ceased to lay eggs. In summary, it is always amazing how quickly chicks can grow into laying adults and how fun they can be and how easy they can be. Megan, do you love having chickens?
Oh, I do. Absolutely do.
What is the number one thing you like about chickens the most?
I don't. I just they're entertaining.
They're very entertaining. Their
I like
attitudes,
them. I mean,
they're fun.
using the eggs is very easy to provide for our family.
Mhm.
You know, it's super easy, and you have a good source of protein. And you know, when it comes down to it, if that's what like you need to have something.
Right.
You know, everybody always talks about rice and beans and the dry storage. Well, you also need other forms and the eggs.
Protein,
and it's good for us because Huxley loves them too.
That's good too. So I'm gonna get our next bird out. They're in the right order too, so that's good. You're all right. You're okay. Let's see if I can get out of here without tripping a wire there. All right. This is a full-size Bar Rock chicken. I'm gonna bring it back. Stop. So this is a full-size Bar Rock chicken. Her wings are not clipped because they haven't been let out. We have to put a barrier around our garden so they can be let out. But they will eat ticks, and they'll eat all kinds of bugs, and then you'll only have to feed them half the time. This mama here is about a year old. She's a great egg layer and a great bird. And she, again, is a Plymouth Bar Rock. You can see by their size. Hey. You can see by their size that they are a pretty big chicken. I mean, they're pretty meaty, and their rooster counterparts are twice the size. Our rooster's pretty big.
Rooster is huge.
So,
LB, leave the chicken alone.
So take a look at this bird here. You can see why they're called Bar Rock because they have the lines across them. But if you look at the color of the bird, bring them closer here.
May, get out. Come on, May.
So if you look at the color of the bird,
May.
It's black and white. This is how you can tell you have a healthy young black or healthy young chicken. And for sure this bird will produce for another year before it starts molting again, and we decide what we're going to do with it. So next we're going to get our last bird. Got her?
Come
on. All right. Now, the thing about this is, this girl is 3 years old. She's a lot more docile. She's a lot more tame because she's been around us the longest time. And the longer they're around you, the more tame they get. But take a look at her head. You see she's got some old spots on her. She's you can see her color. Her color is more like a brownish instead of a black. This is another bar rock. This is the first generation of our chickens. The chicken that we had before is the second generation from this young lady right here. This girl's been around for 3 years and she still lays about 1 egg about every other day. We have 3 or 4 of these old gals left, and this year we'll probably, before the end of the season, we'll probably cull them and put them in the pot. And that's one thing about your livestock is they're not pets. They are they're food. They're a source of energy and they're a source of food for you to have right in your backyard. And again, in the old days, there was no refrigeration. There were live animals, and then there were dead animals. If there was refrigeration, it was a spring house or something of that nature to keep it cool enough to let it hang for a day, or there was snow if they were far enough north to be lucky enough to have that for refrigeration for half the year. But so there was no refrigeration. So when they were hungry and they wanted to eat, they killed it right then and there. And that's the best preservation method I can think of. It's just keep them alive as long as you need to keep them alive until you need to eat.
Yeah.
And so this old mama is a good girl. But yeah, that's how you can tell you have an older hen. All right, you're gonna go to mama. All right, calm down.
Come here, love. Come here, love. Hey.
So that's our show for tonight. That is the life cycle of the chicken. To recap, you got egg development, hatching using birds or using incubators. You got your chick phase, you got your pullet phase or adolescent phase, and you got your hen or adult. Roosters go along with the same line. We didn't really talk about roosters or males that much because it's the hens that are worth more. It's the hens that are more worthy of your time, and so roosters are just like hens. They don't lay eggs. Their job is one thing and one thing only. Actually, 2 things: protection of the hens and reproduction. And so, biggest thing is you do not need a rooster to have an egg-laying hen. No roosters needed required whatsoever. So if you're in a location that needs to be quieter, there are breeds of bird that are pretty much silent that you can have that won't cause a ruckus for people to be upset about. Again, the point of this series, the point of this show, is to let you know that now is the time to stock up. Now is the time to learn these things so that you can take hold of your own future for the desperate times ahead. I firmly believe that within the next 6 to 8 months, our eyes will be open to a different side of things. I mean, it's different now, but I think it's going to get worse. That's just my personal opinion. God, let me be wrong, because if I'm wrong, you still learned something. You didn't do anything that was not productive. And so I'm Patrick. I'm the Breakaway Homesteader. I'm sure most of you have questions, and that's the point of Monday's show. What I want you to do is go down to the comments below. Leave a comment. Ask a question about chickens. Ask a question about hens. You can ask hen-related questions. You can ask breed-specific questions. We do have several breeds. You can ask egg production questions, meat questions, dual purpose questions, questions about roosters. And so go down, even if you're bored. You know, I mean, yeah, just go down and ask a question that you don't know the answer to about chickens. And on Monday, we'll come back up and we'll answer those questions. Following that on Wednesday, where our next show will be about meat birds and the cycle of meat birds on how you can have that continuous flow of chicken in your own home for the upcoming food shortage. And so again, I'm Patrick, the Breakaway Homesteader. I hope you enjoyed this. Give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you on Monday.
COVID deaths in the UK now exceed those from Italy. And we're going to be presenting a little bit more evidence today that COVID-19 is not natural.
At least 44 states will be partially reopened by Sunday.
Well, the director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is warning that a second wave of the coronavirus in America could be more deadly than the current outbreak.
Herd immunity and the second wave.
Second wave. The second wave appears worse than the first.
To understand how deadly a second wave can be, we have to go back in time 100 years. It's March 1918, and a strange new disease is killing people in a US Army base in Kansas. Soon, the virus spreads throughout Europe and the world as World War I rages on. However, for most people, symptoms of a high fever and malaise last about 3 days, and the virus only has a mortality rate similar to that of the seasonal flu. Over the summer, reported cases of the Spanish flu dropped, and people hoped it had run its course. However, in late August 1918, a new, mutated strain of the virus started to spread. This could kill you within 1 day of getting symptoms. The mortality rate of the virus rocketed. In the month of October in the US alone, 195,000 people died from the disease.
A boat is the only way to get on Justin Sebo's farm near Arkoma, Oklahoma. Every inch of his 10,000 acres is under 2 feet of Arkansas River water. His wheat crop, which was only 2 weeks away from harvesting, is gone.
Hey everybody, this is Shad Sullivan coming to you from the headwaters of Bitter Creek, Archer County, North Texas. We have to talk. State officials will be assisting to help identify potential alternative markets if a producer is unable to move animals, and if necessary, advise and assist on depopulation and disposal methods. Ladies and gentlemen, we are plowing under vegetable crops from coast to coast. We are euthanizing millions of chickens. We are aborting sows and burying feeder pigs. We are dumping milk by the hundreds of thousands of gallons, and now they are preparing us to depopulate the fat cattle ready to harvest because of a bottleneck created by the effects of COVID. This thing hasn't been created by COVID, but the effects of COVID and the logistics therein. We are in trouble. Our food supply is in trouble.